Hi, everybody, and thanks for joining. One of the things I've been working on lately is a challenge for the readers of my blog and my YouTube channel. And that challenge is to do 100 days of code, right? And the idea is that not necessarily consecutively, but over the course of maybe 110, 120, 130 days-ish, we would try to spend an hour a day doing some Python together. And in asking other folks to do that, it occurred to me, I really should practice what I preach and I should really do it myself. So here I am on day one, and I thought a good place to start would be on a poll that I have open on LinkedIn right now, as a matter of fact. I posted this a little over a week ago, and I asked folks to guess or to figure out or to understand of a set of things, which one of the following things was not an object in Python. And spoiler alert, this is not a trick question. There's really one right answer here. And what I want to do in this video is get you to understand how I came to think of this poll. And what I did first was I figured out what the right answer was, and then obviously once you know the answer, then writing the poll is fairly easy. So the possibilities are string literals, operators, number literals, or docstring comments. And as you can see in the poll, the most frequently answered response was docstring comments. So what I'd like to do now is I'd like to walk you through the functions that I used in Python to figure this out and sort of the steps I took. So what I set up was a little README, and on my README I've got just the original poll, and I'm going to be modifying this. This is just a preview view, and here's our source for the README. And then I've got a little function. I needed a function with a docstring since obviously one of the questions involved docstring. In fact, the one that was answered the most often was docstrings. That was the most frequently selected answer. So let's try this out. Let's open up a Python console here. And in this Python console, let's do a couple of things. First thing I want to do is I want to import prettyprint or pprint. And that will allow us to make things a little bit easier to see. We'll go ahead and grab that. Second thing we want to do is we want to import our function, lazy. Lazy is a function. It's defined in lazy.py. So lazy.py, therefore, is a Python module. So we'll go ahead and import lazy from lazy. And as you can see, it's as lazy as can be. It does nothing. The whole point of this function is to have a docstring on it, right? So how are we going to get at, was docstring the right answer? Well, people said that it was not an object. That means that if we were to find where it is, it shouldn't have any properties of an object, right? It should be something else. It should be a comment. But let's take a look at this. Let's see if we can figure out what's available on lazy first of all. The way we're going to do that is we're going to use the dir function in Python, and let's just do dir lazy. Now, dir is a great function. I love dir probably more than I should because I just think it's an awesome tool for exploring Python. Between the functions dir and the functions type, you can just do a ton of good exploration in Python. So dir by default with no argument will show you everything that's defined in the module. In fact, let's just show that real quick. So you can see I've imported pprint and I've imported lazy, and then there's a bunch of other things that are included in the module by default. Obviously the Python built-ins functions are included here under built-ins, __ built-ins or dunderbar built-ins, right? These are magic methods in Python. All of these sort of ugly looking double underscore functions are called magic methods. And you can see the ones that don't have that are the two things we've imported. We've imported lazy, it's a function, and we've imported pprint. So let's take a look and let's drill down and do dir lazy. And what do we find? Well, this is where we need pprint, right? Because that output is not very useful. So let's do this. Let's do pprint dir lazy. And at this point, it's a little bit cleaner, and we can scroll back and look for something that looks like docstring. Can we find the docstring on it? Well, let's look under the D's here, and you can see we've got dict, dir, and then we've got doc, which, well, that kind of looks close enough. What does that say if we were to print it, right? Well, we've got lazy, and then we've got underbar, 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 doc, underbar, underbar, which is, again, is a little bit ugly, but let's try printing that. So print lazy doc. Let's see if that's what we want. Let's see if that's the doc string. Yeah, sure enough, that refers right back to here. This is where the doc string is. So that string matches this exactly, and this is on the lazy function. So what else could it be, right? So there's our doc string, and we have the doc string. But our question now is that doc string that we've identified, is it an object or is it just some kind of comment or something? So to get at that, there are a couple of functions we can use. We can use dir again on it, or we can even use type. But let's try dir first, since we've been using that all along. Let's try dir lazy underbar doc. Now, if this is a comment, it really shouldn't have a lot of stuff associated, we would think. It should say, well, I'm a comment or whatever. But let's just give this a try. So, as you can see, we've got a bunch of different methods on this thing, which is kind of weird for a comment. You wouldn't think a comment would have methods like is lower, upper. Why would you want to uppercase a comment? Why would you want to left justify a comment? This thing doesn't make real sense if this is just some kind of comment thing. So let's see what the doc string actually is. Let's use the type method for that, and let's do, once again, lazy doc. Now all of these methods are starting to make sense. So this comment is in fact not a comment at all. It is sitting on a dictionary of values, which is where Python registers all your variables, your modules. Everything in Python, to an extent, is a dictionary. It boils down to a dictionary. And these dictionaries are navigable and explorable using dir and type, right? So the values that we come back with, we can use dir and we can use type to explore them. So sure enough, the doc string here is an instance of class string. So right off the bat, we've been able to rule out the most popular answer. Doc string comments are instances of type string. They have methods on them. They are objects. So doc string comments does not correctly answer which of the following is not an object in Python. What about the other ones? Well, let's just start at the beginning now and see what we can learn. We've learned that a doc string is a member of a string class. Let's see what happens if we try doing dir on a string literal. This was, one person answered string literal. That was 20% of the folks that answered. So here's a string hello. And we haven't assigned it to a variable. We haven't done anything with it. All that is a string literal. Let's run dir on that. Well, what do we get? Well, it looks a lot like docstring looked, right? A string literal is a member of the string class. It looks like, let's just confirm that using type. Hello is a member of a class, of the string class. So one of the upshots of this is you can actually go back here, get your string literal, and you can actually start calling methods on it. You can call the upper method, and you can do it right off the literal. You don't even need a variable for this. Or you can do lower. So string literals, just like docstring comments, these are both instances of class string. You can call string methods on them because that's indeed what they are. What about operators? Let's see what we can do with operators. Let's use our old friend dir on an operator, and we're just going to pick, for example, the operator plus, right? Everyone knows how to add two numbers. Let's go ahead and run dir on this plus operator. Here we seem to be getting somewhere because we could run dir on a docstring comment, and we discovered that it was a string. We ran dir on a string literal, discovered it too was an instance of the string class. Let's try type on a plus sign and see what happens. We got an invalid syntax on dir. Let's see if type works. No, type gives us the same thing. It gives invalid syntax. So I'm going to go out on a limb here and guess that operators, that might be our candidate for the thing that's not an object in Python. Before we say that though, let's just go ahead and briefly rule out number literals. Can we call dir on a number literal? Let's take 2. They're small. Sure enough, we can call dir on a number literal, no problem at all. We get a bunch of methods that look like they are related to numbers. For example, we can say how many bits are in the number 2. We can do, now here with a number literal, we have to be a little bit careful because unlike a string literal, we can't put the dot right away. We have to enclose it in parentheses. And if you think about it, the reason is if you type 2 dot, Python expects that what you're trying to do is type a floating point number, right? So in order to tell it, we're actually isolating the literal here. We're going to enclose it in parentheses. Then we'll put the dot. And then let's try, let's say, bit count. How many bits in this? 1 bit is set here. And then bit length, let's try bit length. Right, it's a 2-bit number with the 2-bit set and the 1 or 0 bit clear, right? So the length of the bit length is 2 and the number of bits that are set is 1. So this is behaving a lot like an object. Let's just run type on it. And there we go. It's an object of class int. If we try it on a floating point number, what do we get? An object of class float. So number literals, just like string literals, just like docstring comments, are all objects in Python. The only thing we've identified so far that is not an object in Python are Python operators. Those look to be distinct. Those are things that the parser figures out at interpretation time. And it looks like that is the correct answer to the poll. Operators are the only thing in Python that are not objects. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to do 100 days of code with us, I will post a link to the Zen of 100 days of code in the comments. Let us know what you think, and I appreciate you taking the time to watch the video.